Hey guys, Stephen here, and I'm going to show you a little overview of what's included in the pack and how to use them. So I'm starting off in Premiere Pro here, and I've just got some footage of a girl dancing. And what we're going to do is just apply a VHS look onto this. So what I like to do to start off is just grab myself a 4:3 overlay, and I like to place that on a layer, a couple above the actual footage itself, and drag it out. The reason I leave a few layers here is just so we can apply some textures, grains, and probably effects in here also. So first up, I'm going to show you what the grains look like. So go into the grains folder here, and I'm going to scroll through so you can have a little view of them. What these do is just add a little bit of VHS grain into your footage. So we're going to go with number 4 here, and we're going to drag that on top, and we're simply just going to go into the effect controls here and change the blending mode to overlay. Now, if I turn this on and off, you can see what's happening here. We're just almost getting a kind of grainy, almost film-like look here, and just gives it a slightly more VHS retro look. Next up, we're going to apply a texture on top of this. So close this and go into your VHS texture folder and choose a texture that you like. Now we've got lots of stuff here. We've got stuff that's quite heavy, very distorted. We've got stuff that's quite subtle, stuff like this. And we have some just general VHS textures like this also. Now we're going to go with this one here. I quite like this one because it has that really typical VHS characteristic at the bottom. It's also got some really nice colours in the background and a little bit of distortion as well. So grab that this time and put that on top of your footage also. I'm just going to trim that at the end again so it's all nice and neat. And to apply this texture, all you simply do is click on it, go to your effects controls again, but this time change the blending mode to screen. And if I play that through, you can see what's happening here. Now already we've got something that's quite resembling of VHS. So one other thing we can do is just emulate a VHS tape actually being played. So one way to do that is by using the control files here. So what we're going to do is just make some space at the start of our timeline, remove everything over, and we're going to add in some control files. So essentially what these are is just, for instance, an insert, what happens when you press pause. We have multiple plays here, but we're just going to go random. So we're going to choose an insert and a play. Now we don't want the footage as long as that, so we're going to trim these right down. We're going to put this on the first layer, and we're going to move everything over so it's all nice and neat. I'm also just going to close everything so we can see this a little bit better and make this a bit bigger. So something that goes really well with the control files is adding in some sound effects. So we're going to go into our VHS SFX folder, and we're going to grab an insert. We're going to drop that in at the start, and we're also going to grab just a general noise and put that in here also. Now this is a little bit too loud, so we're just going to turn the audio down by say something like 5. And again, just trim it so everything's nice and neat. And I'll let this run through so you can see what's actually happening here again. Now that to me just adds a little bit of extra authenticity. But one other thing we can do is just add in a tiny transition before the actual footage itself plays. So again, into the transitions folder, and we're going to just choose a transition. So to me, the first one stood out to be quite the best one. I like that when it flicks up here, like that right there. So we're just going to shorten that down and place that just before the footage plays. And this just gives us a nice little transition. And lastly, what I'd like to show you is a couple of effects that help really tie in with the VHS look we're going for here. So what I'm going to do is just move these both up. This just gives us a space for an adjustment layer to go in. So right click here, new item, adjustment layer, and just drag that on top of your footage. Now what we're going to do is just add in some effects. So the effects I like to use are a Gaussian blur, curves, an Unsharp Mask, and last of all, a channel blur. So I'm going to go through these one by one and turn them all off and just focus on one at a time. So we're going to start off with a Gaussian blur, and what we're doing here is just trying to soften the footage. VHS was never as sharp as this, so something like maybe 9 will be quite nice. And as you can see, that is just softening things off a little bit, especially around the edges. Next up, what I'm going to do is the Unsharp Mask. So I'm going to drag that up so it's the next one on the list. And we're going to open this up. And we're going to change the amount to something like maybe 130. And we're going to put quite a large radius, something like 10. So all this is doing is really sharpening in the edges, which is quite a characteristic of VHS tapes. You tend to see these kind of halo effect around lines. So the Unsharp Mask is perfect for that. Next, we're going to go to the curves. So what I'm going to be doing with the curves is almost uncolor correcting. The colors here are very nice and very clean, but we want a more retro and vintage look. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kill off some of the highlights. Something about there's quite nice. This will all be dependent on your footage, but that's a good general ballpark. Sometimes it up here is quite good as well. But in the case of this footage, I'm going to crush it quite heavily. Next, what I want to do is just add a little bit of purple into the shadows. This just gives us a nice retro look. So to do that, we just take the green channel, go to the shadows, and we're going to drag this over to the right slightly. We're also going to push a bit of green into the midtones. We don't want this to be too heavy. Something like that looks quite good to me. If I turn this off, you can see what we're doing here. Next, we're going to be adding in a tiny little bit of chromatic aberration. I suggest you don't go too heavy with this because it ends up looking slightly digital. So what I like to do is just take the blue channel, add in maybe something like 20, and I like to just affect it on the horizontals. Typically, you would see a little bit of chromatic aberration around the edges, like you can see here. So just doing it on the horizontal really helps with that. And once more, I'll let this play through so you can see what we've created. And that is how I use these assets to give a little bit of a VHS look onto my footage. So next up, what I'm going to show you is how to use the 3D logo file and the title files. All it is a case of going up to your project here, right clicking on the replace with your logo file and simply replacing the file. So I have something on my desktop here. This is just a logo file. It has to have transparency, so a PNG is a good option. And simply drop that in and it is easy as that. One thing we can do is if we don't like this background texture or we want to go with something different, all you have to do is do the exact same thing but on the texture file. So for instance, we're going to go here, replace footage, go into your main textures folder and choose something you like. We're going to choose something totally different here. We're going to go with the main green and see how this looks. Okay, so this is looking pretty good to me. And as you can see, no matter what background you choose, it will displace the logo accordingly. Next up, what I'm going to show you is how to use the VHS titles and text files. As you can see, this one is pretty similar. It is just a lot more static. So to simply change your stuff here, all you're going to do is go into this composition here. And it's just a case of dropping anything you want into this composition. So for instance, I can delete this logo and I can type in some text. So we're going to go with this film is based on a true story. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger so we can see it. And as you can see, it is as simple as that. Feel free to go in here, change the texture, or if you want to go a little bit deeper, you can change the blur and effects on all the text. This is also transparent, so if you drop out the background, put your transparency on, you can have something that is already pre-keyed for you. Brilliant guys, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, please feel free to head over to my website, which you can see here, to pick up the pack, and I'll catch you guys later.